Okay, so welcome everybody. We've got a really fun chat in store this afternoon for me and evening for Vreni, who is in Switzerland. First, I'll just do a quick introduction to School of Humankind, where we are a global faculty and we come together and just have these discussions and share our viewpoints. And my water bottle, I will move that out of sight. And today we're talking about emotions, and from a standpoint of an engineer. That's my background, my background, and Vreni's background as an artist. So you can find us on www.schoolofhumankind.com. We run free events like this twice a week, and we'd love for you to join us. So, Vreni, why don't you do a quick introduction of yourself?
Thank you. I am Vreni Renggli. I'm based in Switzerland, as you just said, and I am an artist as well as a mother of three. And I'm a lot of other things in my life, but those two things are the things that I kind of basing my how do you say, like the thing I do here with the School of Humankind on. So I am a matrescence facilitator, and I support mothers in their journey of becoming a mother. So if you never heard about matrescence, it's the term to describe the time of mother becoming. So this phase that is now really described as a developmental state or developmental phase that you go through. And this time in your life, how do you say, like it would be very helpful if you get support during this time of life. I did not get this support in the transition from maiden to mother, and this is how I came to do the work I do today, or yeah, today, or just in my practice as an artist, because I've been a creative before I became a mom, and I would say I lost myself in this transition. And I had to really fight my way back to myself and to my creativity. And on the way fighting back, or on the way back to myself, I discovered this word matrescence. And I was like, oh, if I had known about this, it would have been way easier. And maybe I would have found support on this journey. So that's what I do now. I support mothers on this journey through my art. And there is a lot to say about emotions in this journey.
Yes, and I I was saying in all my social media posts that even our discussion as to how we were setting up this talk, it was so insightful to me, and I made so many revelations just in that talk that I was thinking, I hope we can have the same kind of feeling in this one because it was so good. So for myself, I'm Angela Jamieson. I'm located in Canada, in Saskatoon. And my background is engineering. I had an international career as a petroleum engineer before coming home. I'm also a mom of three, and I just wanted to give them some roots as opposed to flying around the world all the time and becoming what they call third culture kids. So being home, I'm trying to help people, busy professionals, see the logic behind the softer sides of life. And that includes emotions, because I feel, especially in the engineering profession, which I'll go into later, we don't really consider our emotions as valid data. And it so is. So that's been my focus, and what I call myself a relaxed productivity advocate, because knowing all how to deal with emotions really helps us in our everyday lives. So, with that being said, let's go dive right into our topic. And, when we talk about an artist and an engineer, you can see, one's on the far logic side, almost too far, because there was a comic called Dilbert, and all of us engineers, we would just howl at it because it was so true that they were characters who made decisions based, emotions were not even on the table. And if you showed emotion, that would be weakness, because we don't do that. We just make decisions based on logic. And then there's your artist side, which I'm just so looking forward to diving into how you look at it, and then how I look at it, and can there be a place where we meet or have some realizations about how we can leverage the power of both creativity and logic when it comes to emotions. So, Vreni, tell us, how was your journey with emotions shaped through your creative work?
Well, I think when you're an artist and you try to create something, there is always an emotion with it. You know, like either you know the emotion you start with, or you start working on something and it evokes an emotion within you. And I think you can't make good art without emotion. So it's kind of the opposite of the engineer, right? And for sure, there is also this notion of weakness around the emotions or certain emotions. But still, when you're an artist, I think your world is way more open to emotions and what it means for your work. And it is necessary to create good art. So when we talked about how we structure this talk, and you talked about the logic, you know, like you approach everything from the logical side. We came to this point where I said, you know, well, but when you talk about emotions, for me, you're already one step too far. You know, I'd like to go one step back and not talk about like sadness or fear or an, how do you say, like an
You don't
emotion
want to
that's
put a
already
label.
defined.
Yeah,
Sorry.
you don't want to put a
Yeah.
label to it.
Yes, that already has kind of a name to it, but I'd like to go one step back and look at the emotion just as the energy in motion in my body. Because this is what I do in my work, especially since I became a mom. I've always been connected to my emotions and to my art. But when I went through this process of matrescence, I had difficult time connecting to my emotions or to know what my emotions are. There were so many unknown things going on within me when I became a mother that I could not label, that I could not put a name to it. And I was looking for a way to express it. And I found it through my art. Because when I turn to abstract art, I can express things that I do not have to label. So I literally just feel in my body and I feel the energy in motion and I translate it on my paper or on my canvas. And I think this is where we kind of started from two completely different places. So my work is really based on this energy that I feel in my body and that I bring out onto my paper. And I experience this as being really like healing or soothing or relieving when I am able to bring whatever's inside that I do not need to label out on my page. And especially during this time of matrescence, where I experienced so many things that were like unknown to me, or sometimes conflicting emotions that were just jumbled up within me, and I could not really say, is this sadness, is this grief, is it just overwhelm, or what is it? And I was able to just first bring it out and give myself some space. And then going further with what I had on the page, sometimes I became able to label it, and sometimes the need for the label just vanished. You know, it just wasn't important anymore.
Yeah, and I think that was the biggest realization for me, is because, and we'll talk about how I use emotions later. Like, there was the difference between the emotion and the feeling. So the feeling is like the label for that energy and motion, which I really loved that you brought that it's really an energy that we bring, caused by, there's what I teach my clients is all about the belief cycle. You know, you have a thought and then an emotion comes out of it because of all of your what you've known in your past. And you have a certain vibration, you have a certain frequency due to that emotion because it is just energy in motion. And you know, when you come to artists, when I think about it as a logical person, is there's always a concept of a tortured artist that, you know, you need to have that pain in order to create some of the great works of art. Does that even become a little bit of a limiting belief for an artist that like, oh, I can't create anything good because I actually feel okay today? Does that ever
That's
cross
very
your
funny.
mind?
I literally have a friend who said, you know, I'll never be able to make really deep work because I had just a nice childhood and I never really experienced troubles. And I think you can definitely have this as a limiting belief. And I don't think it's true. I really don't think it's true.
So what I actually don't have to go out and like get tortured or abuse me, hurt me so I can create good art.
I would not recommend, no.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Because I, you know, as a fairly steady kind of feeling person, I'm just like, I just don't want to go there. But I love the difference that the realization we made about you don't need that label. And I do feel it as I used to be a pianist. I do feel it in music. Like there's, you know, when you listen to music, there's a feeling you get from it, but I can't even put a label on it. I just feel it. And you can feel the whole range of emotions from music. It can make you angry. It can make you sad. It can give you this unbelievable feeling of life just from listening to music. And that's because in my logical brain, it attaches to the same frequency that brings out in your emotion. But we'll talk more about that later.
Yes, and I wonder, you know, you said before there's this cycle. How did you call it? Like
The belief cycle.
the belief cycle. And you said, you know, there is a thought and it evokes an emotion. Or is it an emotion and it evokes a thought, or it creates a thought, or it goes to some memory you have and like repeats that thought. So I don't know which way it
Yeah, it's
goes.
kind of chicken and egg, but when you talk about beliefs, out of your beliefs first comes a thought, and then you get that trigger of emotion from your subconscious because your subconscious is throwing all these stories you've lived and you've experienced in your life to give you whether you feel good about a situation or not. Which gives rise to your action, which gives rise to your outcome, which reinforces your belief. So unless you are able to interrupt that cycle, you know, when you say, okay, I get this initial emotion, and you can, if I don't like it, you can actually work on it at that point in order to change your action, to change your outcome, to change your belief. That's the concept behind it.
So without any like expertise on this, just as a, a food for thought, you know, when the baby gets born, you get born very immature without any capacity of reasoning, but you get all your first input during the first year or up to 3 years through your body, through your senses. And it gets stored in the so-called implicit memory. So there is this basis of your brain that is all based just on feeling, you know, just on what you experience through your senses without having the capacity to even create a thought. Not even, you know, like create a thought, but not even being able to express it, you know, that's another step.
Yeah.
So it's just really interesting that um, now with our developed brain, we're not able to identify the feeling or the emotion, but we believe that, like the thought is kind of the source or the initial thing.
Yeah,
And
we've flipped.
I just dare to question this.
No, that's good. That's good. And I think at some point of maturation, it does go this does do this flip because we can realize the thought and we can express the thought first. And then everything fills in after that. But of course, who knows what really goes on? We have to really feel it for ourselves. What is true for you? So anyway, back to your your work has informed your emotions. Was there anything else you wanted to say about that?
No, it kind of connects to what I was just talking about, the implicit memory. Because when I started working in with this approach of just going to the emotion and expressing the emotion, and then having this expression on my page and going in with some logic and a lot of also like feeling and intuition, and I was starting to change what I had on the paper, I realized that some of my really kind of core feelings started shifting, which was first for me. I did not know all this about the brain and development and implicit. I've never heard about implicit memory, and I had never heard about matrescence. But what I know today is that matrescence is a massive brain change. You go like through second puberty, you can say, like the brain changes are as massive as through adolescence. And your whole brain becomes plastic, and plastic, that's the word, I think, right? Like malleable.
Yeah,
And therefore, you're able to access areas in your brain that were prior maybe not accessible to you,
right.
like this part of this implicit memory. And I really love diving into this realm and just express on this emotional level without labeling and without even the intention to label and explain and reason, just to work on this and experience the difference of this emotion moving in my body.
Yeah. And I love that whole concept, which brings to question, when you're sitting on a psychiatrist or whatever psychologist chair, couch, and they're asking you to talk about your feelings, how you feel about something, it's almost like forcing you to put a label on it. And it would be really nice if somehow you could express your emotion to someone else without that label. Do you think that's possible? And because you're doing it through your art, but art as a me looking at your art, I might get something totally different from what you were trying to express. So yeah, and I don't know if there's an answer to that, but that just sort of popped into my head.
Yeah, I think there's two questions you asked, right? The first one, is it possible to express? And absolutely yes. So through all those creative practices, like you can express through art and you can express through dance or through music or whatever. And I think the method I developed to express through really basic drawing, I would say everybody's able to express then those emotions onto the paper. The second question you asked, like, or you said that when you look at my lines, you'll get something completely different. This is another story, right?
Right.
So this then is a question about who am I talking to? Like what's your story? What's my story? what's your interpretation and mine, and am I able to really step back and put all my stories away to really see and listen what you have to say.
And
And I
the
don't know
beauty of
if this is possible, honestly, you know, like on a 100% level, because you're shaped through what your experience is, you know, like.
but maybe the beauty is that it's the start of a conversation.
Absolutely. And I think you'll get from it what you need and what you're looking for.
Yeah. Um,
But
so yeah, go ahead.
yeah, tell me about your approach to emotions.
Okay. Well, as a child, I think I was pretty creative, but going into the engineering as a area of study, I think it was a little bit beaten out of me because um, we need to make decisions that are based on fact, on logic, on numbers. But as I got more senior in the company and became a manager, or actually the person creating the numbers, I realized that there was fault in that because I could make the numbers say whatever I wanted them to say. So that made me really question all of the like I said, I can only make a good business decision when I leave my emotions out of it. That's kind of what I trained myself because I needed to look at the numbers, I sort them, even though I really like that project, it doesn't have as good numbers as that one. So we clearly have to do that one. But when you peel it back, it's actually kind of false. Like all of our production forecasts, I was in, oil and gas, they never were correct. So we're making business decisions based on bad data, but garbage in, garbage out. And then when I kind of stopped the active engineering and I'm now searching for truth in life, and I was pointed to your emotions being your GPS, being your true guidance, it made me think, have I damaged my GPS just because I put less validation on what I was feeling because I had to turn it off for work. And even I had a friend who said we were starting families, and she was also in the sciences. And we were talking, oh, how many kids are you going to have? Little, and she said, well, I'm definitely going to have two because if one dies, then at least I'll have another one. And I was like, that feels so wrong. That feels like a wrong reason to have a second child. But then I was like, but there is some logic to it. So maybe it's okay. Like maybe it's definitely okay for her. And when someone asked me how many kids I wanted, I remember one time I said that answer. I thought, oh, that's pretty logical. But it felt so wrong. And when it came out of my face, I was like, no, no, no. That's just, I heard it. I reasoned through it and I thought, yeah, I guess it's okay, but it's not right. It's like, it didn't feel right to me. So honing how we receive emotions and what it brings up, I think they're really valuable information. And that's how I created my first course called Inner Engineering, because that was to teach people the logic behind their emotions. And so not to stuff them under the rug, not to like hide from them or say that they're not worth coming out, because they really are the human superpower, our emotions. So let's get into, because I see the time it goes by so quickly. Can you talk about your method that you use in your work that really involves the emotions of your clients and what transformations you've seen?
So the method I use is very simple when you just follow the steps. And the steps are a combination of different tools that basically just help you quieting your left brain. You know, the reasoning, the logic, the the judgment, like the inner critique. We go through some steps to just shut this part down, switch it off as good as possible.
I would
And
look
then, sorry?
like that's when my left brain's gone. I'm just dead. Just kidding. I'm better now. I'm more balanced.
Yes, yes. So we just want to give it a pause. We're not going to kill it. We just kind of put it aside for a moment and express from this emotional part of your brain, which is actually connected to our body. So we get a good connection to our body and we express from the feeling of being in our body and in our heart. And what we create during this, it's, you could say it's a little meditation, then it's really an expression from this right side of the brain, from the emotional side, from the, maybe even from the implicit memory. I hope so. And it helps us just, yeah, just access a part of ourselves that we normally can't consciously influence, and this is where I want to go with the mothers for two reasons. First, because through this whole matrescence phase, we get way more activation in the right side of the brain because we need more feeling, we need more empathy, we need more of all those qualities to be able to take care of an infant that does not have words, that can't communicate through words. So the left brain gets on pause a little bit. So that's why you sometimes you think like I was able to solve those math problems and now it's like a riddle. I have no idea. So this is literally what's happening in your brain, and we want to strengthen this right side through this method, and we want to also get rid of all the maybe bad memories or damage that is stored there, in order to create a very strong mother personality, which is the very strong and grounded um, individual that's really able to take care of that baby. So I have forgotten your second question.
uh, the transformation that you see through your work, because there's two steps that you have done in your art, which was, the person does the line work through that, you call it intuitive drawing session, and then
Yes.
you add the layer of magic on it and to make it
Yes.
art.
There is the possibility that you express and that you work on your lines yourself. And then there is a commission painting that I do when I have mothers coming in and just going through the expression part with me and handing over those lines to me to create from this. I sometimes call it, like you give me the seed and I let it blossom, through art and through creativity. Because I think when you are in this phase of mother becoming, like you're also in this state of becoming a new person, like becoming a new mother identity. You grow into a new version of yourself, and this is sometimes very scary. And also sometimes you lack perspective. Can I say this? Or like you're not very sure where you want to go. And this would go into a whole other topic or a whole other area. But there is this perfect mother image around, like this mother archetype that is like always patient, always loving, and like has a whole list of attributes that are actually like complete nonsense, like if you try and and try to become this mother, you'll just burn out. And if you're in this state of like newborn mom, very vulnerable, very insecure, you can go through this process with me and I will paint you the potential of your new mom self. So that's the second um, thing I do. And I also do courses where you create your own artwork.
And I guess you've done a few sessions for School of Humankind, and if anyone would like to try it, there's a couple sessions within our library or YouTube channel that you can listen to. And I have to say, doing from my point of view, I remember our first times where I've done a few sessions with you, and the first like we would go into this intuitive space, and I would draw something and you would draw something. I mean, everyone's drawing something, and then we show it to each other. Yours is like there's circles here, there's squares there, there's a few scratches of down there. And mine, I was actually trying to draw something. Like I was trying to draw, a person or something. It was, I remember the first time you were going, yeah, you made a comment of like, I'm trying to create this structure where you don't need a structure. And
Yeah, I think we did not manage to put your logical brain on pause.
no, no. But what I think I need more sessions, I just need, and I think it's a really good exercise for someone like me to go through because it's slowly letting go. And it's
Yeah.
like you said about the mothers, they think they have to be something in order to be good. And maybe I have some layers I need to peel back because I'm thinking I should draw something that looks like something.
Yeah, and you said before, you wonder if you damaged your intuition. And I think you can't damage it, but I think you can bury it very deeply. So
Yeah, mine was in a coma. Like you'd have to like, come on, you can do it. You're in there. But now I'm more awake in terms of my intuition, but still have work to do. I'm always have work to do. So I'm gonna talk a little bit more about my stuff, if that's okay, in terms of
yeah,
how I see it from an engineering point of view and how I explain it to my clients. Because to me, what I love about emotions is that if you can relate it to a frequency, then it means something to me. It means something that's um, replicatable. You can repeat it, it's constant, and there's a really good explanation on how you can use it. So there's a lot of science now in terms of people being able to measure the frequency of an emotion. And they use electromagnetic, like you can put probes on your head, and now we can measure frequencies. So if you look on YouTube and you want to listen to music with a love frequency, it's around 500 hertz, and you can listen to that, and I don't know, it's supposed to get you in the mood for love. Or there's a study, there's the productivity, there's like just feeling authentic. Like I'm gonna share with you this thing if I can find it. um, Here. And okay, can you see this? Okay, so this is the emotional scale. So this is where we have taken the emotion and we've created a feeling. And this is someone's interpretation of the list of the negative feelings all the way to the highest frequency. And I've added this feeling of authenticity to be at the highest level of expansive feelings. So when my clients have an issue, I say, okay, where about are you on this? And let's make a plan to just get to the next level, because you can see the energy increasing as you go up. if you remember the last time you were so excited about something, even, think of a kid who's excited. They're always like this. They're just like so high energy. And if you think about depression or grief or despair, you're basically flat out on the couch. There's no movement whatsoever. This is kind of reflecting the energy, which someone has also drawn this. This is how they've measured the frequencies of these different emotions. So they're a really good guide to me and my clients that it's like you can't tell a depressed person just be happy because they've got to go all the way up there. What I'm telling to depressed people is, can you feel some anger about something? Like, can we get you angry? Because getting someone angry who's depressed, that starts to move their energy in the right way. And this moves all the way up. You can see that at at satisfaction and contentment, you're pretty you're pretty even. You're pretty level. It's not good, not bad. And then we try to move people to more expansive energies. But the whole feeling about emotions to me is thinking about the delta. So here is where we would sit at the very top to really be our own selves, be really who we are. And so the more negative you feel is the sign to you how far away you are from your true self, if we equate the true self to the top level. So, for instance, if you are feeling angry about some interaction you had with someone and you're mad at that person, maybe you even hate them, you need to know that your authentic self does not feel that hate. They see that other person as being valuable, as being unique, as being beloved. So there's a huge disagreement between your authentic self and what you're feeling at that moment. And to really reframe whenever you feel that negativity so that you can get back to something more expansive. So that's kind of the logical way that I help people like me make sense out of emotions, and that it's okay if you're depressed just to feel jealous one day. If you feel jealous about something, then you got to pat yourself on the back because, hey, I am making forward movement in my energy. And then maybe the next day, try to go for revenge. Like, there is no bigger bonding of love and appreciation than to have the same enemy. When I don't know if you've been in a situation with colleagues where, you just, that guy's annoying, that guy, blah, blah, blah. But once the boss lays the hammer down and makes you all feel like crap and you all hate the boss, you love each other because you all hate the same thing. So,
Don't tell my kids.
well, and siblings, they have that appreciation because they've been raised in the same house. They've they've experienced our unique parenting style that is not perfect all the time. That we make mistakes, and when we do that, your kids can commiserate with each other. Like, remember when mom said this? Or, and that's very bonding. So this is how I logically use emotions in the teaching that I do. What are your thoughts, Miss Creativity?
I love what you said about the delta, between what you feel and that your true self would not feel this, or that just it's kind of you're out of alignment then when
Yeah.
you experience those thoughts. And I tried to find the logic of my process in this, because I feel as when I do my process and I how should I say this? It's as if I am drawing kind of the delta, like what's between me and my higher self or true self or authentic self, like where I want to go. So I kind of get this expression of the friction, the yeah, friction, or what's in between, like.
Yeah. And when you're describing your art, it's like you are moving up the emotional scale through the art because you can start in a negative place, but then all of a sudden you've moved it to a good feeling spot through your art. And I think that's why people are drawn to making art because
Yeah, I think.
it's that moving the emotional scale without labels. Like you just feel better. And that's the whole point of it.
Yeah, I think that's just the power of creativity, like, is it art or dancing or poetry or whatever. It's just the self-expression, the self-expression that tries to move you to who you really are, like to find this true self, this core inside. And I have to think a little bit more about this delta, because I think what I express is what is in this delta. And when I go and work on it, then from the logical part, like from the knowledge of about composition and about color and values and all the things I know that will make a good painting that has uh, one of this upper frequency um,
Emotions.
emotions, or like one of those frequencies, of those high frequencies. um yeah, I think what I do is then moving up the scale.
Yeah. And what I really like, and it's another layer of what I teach, is we have different minds. So what you're talking about, intrinsic, I call subconscious. And then there's the conscious mind that feels everything. Like you're going up and down, you're angry, you're sad, happy. And then there's a super conscious mind who looks at it and says, this is all okay. You know, that we all, if we want to feel better, we want to have a better life. We use the emotions to try to move up the scale in our conscious world. But the superconscious knows that life is about the ups and downs. And we cannot feel the ups without feeling the downs. So it's like the realization that even when you're feeling the downs, it's a celebration because that's calibrating what we really want. Like if something makes you feel bad, then the opposite of it is what you really want. And it's making that quick change to focus on that instead of wallowing in the negative emotion that is really the spice of life, that everything's okay and we should celebrate the roller coaster. But
Yeah, enjoy
some
the
people's
ride.
roller coasters are like this, and some people's are like this, right? And it's all fine.
And some people's already feel sick when they look at them.
That's right. That's right. So we are at time, which is crazy because, yeah, we haven't covered everything we wanted to. But I guess to ask our audience, do you have any questions or observations that you'd like to include? And you don't have to, that's fine too. Any thoughts?
Those
I think
long.
it's been interesting listening to both of them and trying to work out which side I think I fall more on, you know? And
There's
unfortunately, I think I'm on the
probably
logical side.
I think everyone has a little bit of both, right? Like when I go to the symphony, I am lost in those emotions. And I can just tell you I had a wonderful time, but I can't exactly express what it was. It
Mm,
just, it's like art is more personal,
mhm.
maybe.
I
Yvonne,
think we all have both. I think it's just
what
would
we'll
be
run free. Like listening to you, Vreni, I want to be more like you. Like just be free.
I think
and
listening
listening
to
to
both
you.
is
Sorry.
kind of like I'm saying, you know, where I started and where I'm kind of going. It's like because I lived my whole life in my head. You know, again, I was a senior executive making decisions, using logic, doing all of that kind of thing for, you know, all up until kind of mid 40s. And um, emotions were something that I didn't know much about. I didn't grow up with conversations around emotions. I grew up with parents who had a couple of businesses, who worked 7 days a week with 5 kids. It was all very transactional and very practical. It was a very loving and secure home, but we didn't, like my parents would, I can imagine, would have thought that that would have been navel gazing if you were talking about emotions. There was no, you know, there was no time for that, and it wasn't part of growing up anyway. It was a different era. So I had no experience of the words for emotions. And I don't know whether you've read Brené Brown's
Atlas
what's
of
her,
the Heart.
yeah, the Atlas of the Heart, where she talks about that most people grow up with, if you ask them the question, how do they feel, it's mad, glad, or sad. Or happy, sorry, like just literally that's it. And that's me. I grew up, and that's, if you'd asked me how I was feeling, I would have been, yeah, I'm happy. No, I'm not great. Do you know, it was just that basic. So I grew up very much in that kind of sphere. But equally, I'm a highly sensitive person. I'm a HSP, and I felt things very deeply, but I had no language whatsoever. So I disappeared into books as a child. That was my thing, was reading and also writing. And I have books and books of poetry, you know, from my childhood, my teens, and that's how I expressed myself, which nobody ever saw. Um, and I think, you know, and then Vreni, I come to you and that whole thing about you become a mother. And when I became a mother, you know, I think the biggest wall I hit was, God, I can run a business with 400 people and these two tiny people are confounding me. You know, it was that I can run a business that takes logic and decision making and leadership and all of that, no problem, you know. And then I can come home and these two kids can reduce me to tears within 5 minutes. And I was feeling so many emotions with no language, either internal language or being able to actually verbalize it. So, you know, I'm seeing myself in both of you, which is, you know, a very interesting thing. So yeah, it's a really great conversation. I'm enjoying it all.
Well, thank you very much for your input. Vreni, do you have any closing thoughts? What would you like people to leave with after this chat?
Closing thoughts. There's so many.
I know.
I think it's just to know that, like, we all have both, you know, and I think we need both. It's like everything in life, like it's yin and yang. It's like the logic and the emotional side. But I think in general in our culture that the logic is way more empathized. It's way more value on this, you know, and it's more training on this side. So sometimes the emotional part, as Yvonne said, is just not as developed. And then when you become a mother and you run into this part of your life where all the reasoning, you know, you can't reason with a 2-month-old. No, there's no reasoning. It's not going to work. And then you just have to go, like, it needs a steep learning curve to be able to cope, to just do this.
And it could be a whole other conversation, but it was when you're talking, I'm thinking, are we less versed in emotions because we tend to be a patriarchal society that values the values not showing emotions?
I would say so, yes.
A whole other conversation.
A whole other conversation. But I just want to say that I'm going to run one of those drawing sessions on the 20th of March for the School of Humankind. So if anybody wants to join this session.
I'll be there, and I'm gonna just let the shapes go.
Looking forward to this.
And I guess I just want people to know to listen to your emotions, to sort them out. Sometimes emotions are not true. So that's the self-awareness and the examination of, is this emotion good for me? Negative emotions or constrictive ones are usually pointing out something that we need to work on. And yet we shouldn't always try to be happy or see that negative emotions are a bad thing. It's just like putting your hand on, like, it was -35 here not that long ago, and my son had people over. They were in the hot tub and they tried to get in and their hand froze to the door. And it's just like saying, yes, it's painful, but I'm just going to stay here, you know. And that's what we do with negative emotions. We tend to sit in it instead of saying, okay, this is information for me to move my hand. Although unfortunately they were frozen, but not the best example, but you know what I mean. It's like, take the negative emotion as information and not to beat yourself to a pulp.
Yeah, as information and as a point to start and
Yeah,
move up
explore.
the scale.
Yes. So thank you so much, Vreni, for sharing your insights. I always love, I think everyone can feel Vreni's authenticity every time she shows up and every time she's here with us. And I am a huge fan. I love talking to her and having these conversations just because she's so authentic and because we're so different. And it just expands my world. And I hope it's expanded everyone's thoughts around emotions, and that you would join us on other talks for School of Humankind and definitely join the conversation. So with that, thank you again. And thank
maybe
you.
add, I'm sorry to interrupt you, because you run this wonderful School of Humankind, and I'm really happy to be part of it. But there's a whole lot of work going into this School of Humankind that mostly Angela and John are doing. And there is a GoFundMe at the moment running. So if there was anything valuable for you in this session, please consider supporting us so we can bring on more for you. And thank you for the work you do, Angela.
Thank you. And thank you for those of you who showed up in the audience. I loved your comments and questions. And so until next time, this is us signing off. Bye for now.
Bye.